When we think about ancient Greece, most of us picture philosophers in pristine white robes debating under olive trees, beautiful marble buildings gleaming in the sun, and Olympic athletes competing for glory. What a golden, civilized paradise, right? Nothing could be further from the truth. For the average person, ancient Greece was a brutal, filthy struggle for survival that usually ended in an early, painful death. Life expectancy, 20 to 35 years at best. And that's if you managed to survive childhood, which about 1/3 of children didn't. Think you'd be the exception? Let's drop you into ancient Greece and see how long you'd last. So, yeah, if these stories work for you, subscribe. And I'm curious, what time is it where you are? Comment below. Last week, someone from Canada said they listened during lunch breaks. Not judging, just wasn't expecting that. Okay, tonight it's ancient Greece. But wait, are you comfortable? No, really, check. Pillows, blankets, the whole deal. Where we're going, you'll want to be settled. So congratulations, you just woke up in Athens, 430 BCE, the golden age of Pericles. Your eyes open to unfamiliar surroundings, a small windowless room with mud brick walls. The air feels thick, acrid with smoke from last night's cooking fire that never fully ventilated through the small hole in the roof. Your lungs burn slightly with each breath, your eyes water. Everyone around you seems used to this. They've been breathing smoke their entire lives. You're lying on a wooden frame with some rope webbing digging into your back. If you're lucky, there's a thin straw mattress on top. If not, just straw on a dirt floor. Your back already aches and the day hasn't even begun. Forget memory foam or even basic springs. Those luxuries are 2,400 years in the future, unlike your comfy bed right now, which cradles your body perfectly. Zeno, get up, or there'll be no water left. A woman's voice cuts through your confusion. Apparently, your name is Zeno now, foreigner. Appropriate. The woman, Lydia, stands in the doorway. You've been taken in as a household servant after being found wandering with no identity or connections. A dangerous position in ancient Greece. Lydia, a potter's wife, decided you might be useful rather than leaving you to starve. Not exactly charity, she expects work in return. The well will be crowded soon, she says, thrusting a heavy clay amphora into your hands. Fill this completely and don't drop it. It's worth more than you are. You stagger to your feet, disoriented but grateful to have shelter and potential protection. The empty amphora alone weighs about 15 pounds. When filled with water, it'll be close to 50. No modern plumbing here. Water must be carried from public fountains or wells. Outside, dawn barely breaks over the cramped, chaotic streets of Athens. The city is enclosed by massive walls, built for protection against Spartan invaders, but they also trap the stench of 300,000 people living without sewage systems. The smell hits you immediately. Human waste, rotting food, unwashed bodies, smoke and animals. Your stomach lurches. People are already moving through the narrow, unpaved streets. Women carrying water jugs like yours, craftsmen setting up workshops, slaves running errands for their masters. A man relieves himself against a wall without shame or privacy. A woman empties a chamber pot from a second-story window with only a quick shout of warning. The waste splashes near your feet and you jump back. First time in Athens, an old man with a twisted back grins at you, his teeth mostly gone. You get used to the smell, or you die. Either way, problem solved. He cackles and shuffles away. His hunched posture isn't from age alone. He mentions having worked in the silver mines south of the city. Many who survive that brutal labour carry physical reminders for life. You follow a group of women to the nearest public fountain. The line is already long. While waiting, you notice how worn everyone looks. Even young people have weathered skin, calloused hands, and postures shaped by hard labor. Many have visible health issues, limps, rashes, chronic coughs. The children look small for their ages, many with distended bellies suggesting parasitic infections. A well-dressed woman with two female slaves passes by. The contrast is immediate. Her skin is clearer, her clothing clean and intact. She doesn't carry her own water. Social hierarchy is physically visible in the bodies of Athenians. When your turn comes, you struggle with the heavy amphora. The water looks questionable, slightly cloudy with a faint smell, but everyone drinks it. Athens has a relatively advanced water system for the time, with terracotta pipes bringing water from outside sources, but contamination is constant. No filtration, no chlorination, nothing to kill the bacteria, parasites and other pathogens swimming in what looks like clear water. "You're not from here," says a young woman named Thea, helping you position the amphora to fill efficiently. "Your accent is strange. From one of the colonies?" You mumble something non-committal, and she seems to accept that you're just from somewhere distant. She shows you a faster way to fill the jug and explains which fountains have the cleanest water. "This one's decent. Never drink from the one near the tannery, though," she warns. "My cousin did once. Fever took her in 3 days. Skin turned yellow, vomiting black bile. The physician blamed bad humours in her blood, but it was the water. Everyone knows it." This casual mention of death, unexpected, rapid, and from something as simple as drinking from the wrong fountain, perfectly captures the precariousness of life here. Death isn't an abstract concept that happens to the elderly in hospitals. It's an everyday companion that takes people of all ages, suddenly and often inexplicably. You thank Thea and hoist the now-filled amphora. The weight is shocking. Your arms strain immediately. The women around you, even girls as young as 8 or 9, manage similar loads with practiced ease. Their arm muscles are visibly defined from years of this daily labour. Carrying the water back through the narrow streets becomes your first survival challenge. The unpaved roads are uneven, with random stones, animal waste and garbage creating obstacles. One wrong step, one slip could mean a broken amphora and a beating from Lydia's husband. Or worse, a twisted ankle or broken bone, injuries that could be fatal in a world without proper medical care. You make it back to the potter's house, arms shaking with effort. Lydia nods curtly, then immediately puts you to work grinding barley for the morning meal. The grain is coarse, nothing like the refined flour of modern times. The grinding stones are heavy, the motion repetitive and jarring on your wrists and shoulders. "Grind it finer," Lydia instructs. "Bad teeth already took 2 of my children. The rest won't suffer from gritty bread." Another casual reference to child mortality that freezes you momentarily. In your time, the death of a child is an extraordinary tragedy. Here, it's a normal, expected part of life. Lydia has had 7 children. 4 are still alive. This is considered good fortune. The morning meal is simple. Barley bread dipped in watered wine, a few olives, and a small piece of goat cheese. It's served on rough wooden boards, eaten with fingers. No utensils, no plates as you know them. The bread is dense and chewy, nothing like modern bread, but the hunger from your physical labour makes it taste incredible. As the household eats, you notice a small shrine in the corner with offerings of food and wine. Religion permeates every aspect of life here. The gods are believed to be actively involved in human affairs, capable of bringing fortune or disaster on a whim. Proper worship isn't optional. It's essential survival strategy. After the meal, Lydia's husband Diocles takes you to his pottery workshop attached to the house. He's neither kind nor cruel. You're simply labour to him, a resource to be used efficiently. He shows you how to prepare clay, explaining each step with the assumption you'll remember it all immediately. "You'll start with preparing materials," he says. "Prove yourself useful and maybe you'll touch the wheel in a year or 2. The work is physically demanding, carrying heavy clay, mixing it with your feet in large vats, removing impurities with your hands. The workshop is hot from the kilns used to fire finished pieces, ventilation is poor, and you breathe in clay dust that coats your lungs. You notice Diocles and his senior apprentice both have chronic coughs. This work is slowly killing them, but it's also keeping them alive by providing income. Watch for those. Diocles points to a large rat scurrying along the wall. They're everywhere. Bite you while you sleep, they will. Got the fever last year from a bite. Nearly died. Rats, mice, fleas, lice. These aren't occasional pests, but constant companions in ancient Greek life. They're in the food, the bedding, the clothing. They spread disease and contaminate everything. Modern concepts of pest control don't exist. People simply coexist with vermin and suffer the consequences. As you work through the morning, your body struggles with the unaccustomed labour, your hands blister from the rough clay, your lower back aches from bending and lifting, your modern muscles, conditioned perhaps for gym workouts but not sustained physical labour, scream in protest. "Pathetic," mutters the senior apprentice, Alexios, as he passes. "Like a child's arms. You won't last a week." He might be right. Physical weakness isn't just uncomfortable here, it's potentially fatal. Without modern medicine, injuries don't heal properly. Without modern sanitation, wounds easily become infected. Without antibiotics, infections frequently lead to death. And without social safety nets, those who can't work don't eat. Midday brings brief respite as the workshop closes for the hottest hours of the day. This isn't generosity, it's practical necessity. The heat of Greek summer is oppressive, regularly exceeding 100 degrees Celsius, 38 degrees Celsius, without air conditioning, electric fans, or even ice. Heat stroke is a real danger, especially for those doing physical labour. You're sent to the market, agora, with a few small coins to purchase supplies. The agora is the heart of Athenian public life, part marketplace, part political forum, part social centre. It's crowded, noisy, and overwhelming to your modern senses. Vendors shout from every direction, selling everything from food to pottery to clothing. There's no fixed pricing. Every transaction involves haggling. No consumer protection either. Goods are frequently misrepresented, weights and measures manipulated. Caveat emptor isn't just a saying here, it's essential survival knowledge. The food stalls catch your attention as your stomach growls. There's fresh bread, olives, figs, and fish. Meat is rarely seen. It's a luxury most people can't afford regularly. The fish looks questionable in the heat, but protein is protein. With no refrigeration, everything is either freshly caught, preserved through salting or drying, or beginning to rot. While navigating the market, you witness a commotion. A man accused of stealing is being dragged toward the government buildings for trial. Justice in Athens is swift and harsh. Trials typically last no more than a day. Imprisonment isn't a common punishment. Outcomes usually involve fines, exile, or execution. The accused must defend himself without lawyers as we understand them. You purchase the supplies Diocles requested and hurry back, wary of becoming lost in the maze-like streets. Athens has no street signs, no house numbers, no maps available to newcomers. Navigation happens by landmark and memory, a cognitive challenge for your modern brain, accustomed to GPS and clearly marked roads. Returning to the workshop, you resume your labours under the critical eye of Alexios, who seems determined to find fault with everything you do. He's competing for limited resources. Diocles can only support so many apprentices, and your presence threatens Alexios's position. As you work, you notice a group of men in the street engaged in animated discussion about politics. They're citizens, the elite minority who can participate in democracy. To be a citizen, one must be male, born to Athenian parents, and have completed military training. Everyone else, women, slaves, resident foreigners, metics, has no political rights. The citizens are preparing to attend the assembly where they'll vote on matters affecting the city. Democracy exists, but in a form that would shock modern sensibilities, direct rather than representative, limited to a small percentage of the population and operating without many of the checks and balances modern systems employ. The men's conversation focuses on the ongoing war with Sparta. The Peloponnesian War has been raging for years, disrupting trade, draining resources, and killing young men by the thousands. Athens is particularly vulnerable because it depends on imported grain. If the supply lines are cut, starvation follows. War is a constant feature of Greek life. Between 700 and 450 BCE, there were only 10 years of complete peace among the Greek city-states. For men of fighting age, military service is mandatory. The hoplite phalanx, the main Greek military formation, requires intensive training and expensive equipment. If you're called to serve, you'll need to provide your own armor and weapons, which cost roughly half a year's wages for an average worker. As the afternoon progresses, you feel something you'd almost forgotten, a sense of accomplishment. You've survived your first morning in ancient Greece. You've secured basic necessities, shelter, water, food, and a potential ongoing source of these things through work. You've begun to map the physical and social landscape around you. But survival here isn't just about making it through a single day. The constant threats, disease from contaminated water, infection from small injuries, violence from crime or war, starvation from crop failure, social ostracism from breaking unwritten rules, create an environment where death is always just one mistake away, and you haven't even made it to noon yet. The midday sun beats down mercilessly as you exit Diocles' pottery workshop. Athens shimmers in the heat, the white limestone buildings almost blinding in the intense Mediterranean light. The streets have emptied somewhat as people seek shelter during the hottest part of the day. Those who remain move slowly, conserving energy, staying in slivers of shade wherever possible. Lydia hands you a small clay cup of watered wine and a piece of barley bread. Eat quickly, she says, then take these pots to Stephanos at the olive oil shop. He'll pay you 3 obols. If he offers 2, remind him of his debt to Diocles. If he gives you less than 3, don't come back. Your first solo errand feels like a test. Can you navigate the city? Can you handle a basic transaction? Can you be trusted with money? Proving your worth is critical. In this society, without social safety nets, your survival depends entirely on your usefulness to others. The pots are packed carefully in a woven basket. They represent days of Diocles' work and are worth far more than you would be if sold as a slave. The weight pulls at your shoulders as you memorize Lydia's directions. 3 streets toward the agora, left at the shrine, to Hermes, right at the public fountain, then straight to the covered market. As you walk, you observe how different social classes experience midday differently. Slaves continue working, obviously. Their comfort isn't a consideration. Poor labourers and craftspeople take minimal rest in whatever shade they can find. The moderately prosperous, like Diocles, retreat to their homes. The wealthy might enjoy a proper midday meal, followed by rest in purpose-built cooler rooms in their larger houses. You pass a group of children playing with a pig's bladder inflated as a ball. Their play seems normal enough, but you notice details that would horrify modern parents. Many have visible, untreated infections, eye inflammations, skin conditions, festering cuts. They're thin, some with the distended bellies that suggest parasitic infections. They play barefoot among street filth. Yet they laugh and argue just like children anywhere, adapted to conditions that are normal to them but shocking to your modern sensibilities. A child of about 7 runs past you, narrowly avoiding collision. "Sorry, stranger," he calls out, not slowing down. His companion, slightly older, gives you an appraising look. "You're new," he states. "Working for the potter?" You nod, surprised at being recognized already. Nikias," he says with the confidence of a child who navigates these streets daily. "That's good work if you don't mind the dust. My father says potter's lungs turn to stone eventually, but you'll eat regularly." Nicias offers to show you a shortcut to the olive oil cellar, and despite some wariness, you follow him. His knowledge of the city is impressive, ducking through narrow alleys, cutting through a small courtyard where he's clearly known, emerging much closer to your destination. Stephanos is fair, but pretends to forget agreements, Nicias advises. "Stand your ground." He grins, revealing several missing teeth, then holds out his hand expectantly. You realize this help isn't free. Having no money of your own, you break off a piece of your barley bread and offer it. Nicias accepts it with a nod, clearly having hoped for a coin, but not surprised by your poverty. "Watch for Lysander and his friends," he warns, before running off. "They take from newcomers, 3 streets that way." He points toward a neighborhood you resolve to avoid. This brief interaction illustrates something vital about survival in ancient Greece. Information is precious currency. Knowing which water is safe, which streets are dangerous, which merchants cheat, which officials can be bribed. This knowledge keeps you alive. Nicias, despite being a child, possesses local intelligence that you lack, making even him more adapted to survival here than you. You find the olive oil shop where Stephanos, a heavy-set man with oil-stained hands, inspects Diocles' pots with exaggerated scrutiny. The negotiation goes exactly as Lydia predicted. He offers 2 obols, you mentioned Diocles' previous service, and reluctantly he hands over 3 small coins. Olive oil is fundamental to Greek life. It's used for cooking, lighting lamps, cleaning bodies, treating leather and medicine. The shop smells richly of it, with large storage vessels, pithoi containing different grades. The highest quality is for food, the lower for industrial uses. Greece produces abundant olives, one of the few crops well suited to its rocky, dry landscape. "You don't look like you'll last," Stephanos comments, eyeing your already sunburned skin and the blisters forming on your hands. "Athens eats foreigners alive, especially during war." The reference to war reminds you of the historical context. You've arrived during the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta, a devastating conflict that will ultimately lead to Athens' defeat. The city is under stress, resources stretched thin, political tensions high. On your return journey, you take a wrong turn and find yourself in an unfamiliar street. The buildings here are larger, better constructed, with decorated entrances. You've wandered into a wealthier area. Before you can correct your route, you're confronted by 3 young men in fine clothing, led by a tall youth with a scar across his cheek. "Look what we found," says the scarred one, presumably Lysander, whom Nicias warned about. "A potter's boy, with coins, I'd wager. His Greek has the refined accent of education." You clutch the 3 obols tightly, knowing their loss would be disastrous. These aristocratic youth aren't motivated by need, but by entertainment. Harassing those of lower status is a common pastime for bored young men from wealthy families. "I've delivered pots for Diocles the potter," you say, trying to project confidence. "His client Stephanos, friend of Pericles, expects me back shortly." The name-dropping is a desperate bluff, but it works better than expected. Lysander hesitates. "Diocles makes those black-figured cups my father collects," says one of the other youths. "My father wouldn't be pleased if his new commission were delayed." The implied threat of parental displeasure and the potential loss of status it represents shifts the dynamic. Lysander shrugs with forced casualness. "Go on then," he says, "but foreigners should know their roots. Stay where you belong next time." You escape without incident, heart pounding. The encounter highlights another survival reality. Social connections matter enormously. Even the implied possibility that harming you might inconvenience someone important was enough protection. Those without such connections are far more vulnerable. Returning to the potter's house, you deliver the money to Lydia, who nods with approval. Your successful completion of this basic task has slightly improved your standing in the household. Such small victories can gradually build security in a world where your survival depends entirely on your social position and usefulness. The afternoon brings a return to labour. The pottery must be decorated before firing, and you're tasked with grinding minerals for pigments: copper for blue-green, iron for red, manganese for black. The work is tedious and the materials toxic. You notice that Alexios, who has worked with these substances for years, has stained fingers and a persistent tremor in his hands. Occupational poisoning is a slow, invisible threat that workers accept as inevitable. "Use this," says a girl of about 12, Diocles' daughter Melina, handing you a cloth to wrap around your face. "It helps with the dust, a little." This small kindness surprises you. Melina explains that her older brother died 2 years ago from the potter's cough, likely silicosis from inhaling clay dust. Her mother now insists on face coverings in the workshop, one of the few concessions to worker safety in an era that has no concept of occupational health. Melina works alongside you, smaller fingers deftly painting designs on finished pottery. Child labour isn't just common, it's expected. Children begin contributing to household work as soon as physically capable, usually around age 5 to 7. By 12, like Melina, they're often fully integrated into the family trade. Childhood as a protected period of play and education exists only for the wealthy, and even then primarily for boys. "I'm faster than Alexios now," Melina says proudly. "Father says I have talent, but when I marry, I'll have to stop." She says this matter-of-factly, already understanding that her future will be defined by her gender regardless of her skills. As she works, Melina explains aspects of daily life you're struggling to understand, the complex social rules, religious observances, and practical matters of survival in Athens. Her perspective as a child who has never known any other reality makes the information more digestible somehow, stripped of adult judgment. "See how I mix the black pigment? Too thick and it flakes in the kiln, too thin and it runs just right and it lasts forever," she demonstrates. "That's how everything is here. There's a balance. Go too far one way or another and you won't survive." Her childish metaphor captures something profound about life in ancient Greece, the narrow margins for error in every aspect of existence. Food must be preserved correctly or it spoils, but preserved too heavily and it becomes inedible. Water is essential but potentially deadly if contaminated. Social connections provide protection but can turn dangerous if politics shift. Religion offers structure but demands costly sacrifices. Every necessity carries corresponding risks. The afternoon wears on, and your modern body struggles with the unaccustomed labour. Your back aches from bending over the grinding stone. Your hands, soft from a lifetime of modern conveniences, have developed painful blisters that threaten to become infected in this pre-antibiotic world. Your head throbs from dehydration and eye strain in the dim workshop light. Melina notices your fatigue. "It gets easier," she says, though you're not sure if she's being kind or just practical. Your hands harden after a while. The pain never really goes away, but you stop noticing it so much. This casual acceptance of constant physical discomfort reflects another survival reality. Pain is not an emergency here, but a normal condition of existence. Without effective pain relief beyond wine, willow bark, and opium, all with significant limitations, people simply endure what modern humans would consider unbearable. As evening approaches, work in the pottery finally ends. Your muscles tremble with exhaustion. Modern exercise, even intense workouts, poorly prepares the body for the sustained physical labor that was normal daily life in ancient times. Activities that seem simple, carrying water, grinding grain, kneading clay, become torturous when performed for hours without modern ergonomic tools. Diocles examines the day's work, grunting with minimal approval. "You didn't completely waste the materials," he tells you, which apparently constitutes high praise for a first day. "Tomorrow you'll start earlier. The clay must be prepared before the heat." The evening meal is similar to breakfast: barley bread, olives, a thin vegetable stew, and watered wine. The monotony of the diet would drive modern palates to rebellion, but here it represents security. Having reliable, if basic, nutrition is the foundation of survival. Many in Athens eat far worse, and some don't eat at all. During the meal, conversation turns to city matters. News travels entirely by word of mouth, creating an oral network that's surprisingly effective but prone to distortion. Diocles has heard rumors of grain shipments delayed by Spartan naval activity. Potential price increases coming. This isn't abstract economic news. It's a direct threat to survival for families living on the edge of subsistence. "We should stock what we can afford," Lydia says practically. "Remember 2 winters ago." The reference clearly invokes a period of hunger that no one wishes to repeat. After the meal, instead of modern leisure activities, the family continues working. Lydia and Melina spin wool using drop spindles, a task that typically fills every spare female moment. The constant production of thread is necessary for creating clothing, as all textiles are made by hand in a time-consuming process from raw material to finished garment. "You'll sleep there," Diocles tells you, pointing to a corner of the main room where a thin pallet has been laid out. Privacy as a concept barely exists in ancient Greek households. The entire family sleeps in shared spaces, perhaps with fabric dividers for married couples. Only the wealthiest homes have multiple rooms designated for different functions. As darkness falls completely, the house grows dim. Oil lamps provide minimal illumination, just enough to complete essential tasks. The light is flickering, yellowed, and creates dramatic shadows that would seem romantic if not for the practical limitations they impose. Reading is difficult, detailed work nearly impossible. Most activity simply stops when natural light fades. Before sleep, the family makes small offerings at the household shrine, a few drops of wine, a morsel of bread. These daily rituals maintain the relationship between the human and divine worlds. The gods are not distant figures, but active presences believed to directly influence daily life. Neglecting proper worship isn't just impious, it's a practical risk that invites misfortune. You observe and imitate these rituals, understanding their importance for both spiritual and social acceptance. Diocles nods with approval at your participation. Religious conformity is another survival strategy in a world where deviation from community norms can lead to dangerous isolation. As you lie on your pallet, body aching from unaccustomed labor, you hear the night sounds of ancient Athens. Dogs bark in the distance, occasional voices or footsteps pass in the street. From somewhere nearby comes the wailing of mourners. Another death in the neighborhood, another common occurrence in a world where mortality is a daily companion. Despite your exhaustion, sleep comes fitfully. The pallet is hard, nothing like your comfortable modern mattress. Insects bite persistently, fleas and bedbugs that infest all bedding regardless of social class. The unfamiliar night sounds keep triggering your alert response, and your mind races, processing the day's overwhelming experiences and calculating survival strategies for tomorrow. You've made it through your first day in ancient Greece, establishing a precarious foothold in this household. You have shelter, food, and the beginning of social connections. But survival here isn't just about basic necessities. It's about navigating a complex web of social obligations, physical challenges, and constant threats, both visible and invisible. As you drift towards sleep, you realize that modern humans have forgotten what it means to live with such narrow margins for error. Every decision, from which water to drink to which streets to walk, carries potentially fatal consequences. The physical and psychological resilience required for daily life in ancient Greece makes even the toughest modern existence seem cushioned by comparison. Your last conscious thought before sleep finally claims you is a question. Will your modern knowledge help or hinder your chances of survival in this ancient world? The answer remains uncertain as your first day in Athens comes to an end. The afternoon sun hangs lower in the sky now as you continue your work in Diocles' pottery. Your hands have settled into a rhythm with the grinding stone, though your muscles burn with the unfamiliar exertion. Alexios occasionally glances at your work, his initial hostility softening somewhat as you prove yourself capable of basic tasks without complaint. "Water break," announces Diocles, passing a clay cup that everyone shares. The water tastes slightly metallic and warm, but your thirst overwhelms any hesitation. Diocles watches you carefully. "You've worked in a shop before," he observes. "Not a question." You nod vaguely, letting him believe what he wants. The less you reveal about your true origins, the better. In ancient Greece, being truly foreign, not just from another Greek city-state, but completely outside the Hellenic world, would mark you as a barbarian, someone inherently inferior and potentially dangerous. "The Panathenaic festival approaches," Diocles says, returning to his wheel. "We need 50 more cups before then. The symposia during the festival mean good business." The mention of the Panathenaic festival, Athens' most important religious celebration honouring the goddess Athena, reminds you of the central role religion plays in Greek life. It's not just spiritual, it's economic. Festivals create demand for pottery, food, animals for sacrifice, and various services. They structure the calendar, provide rare holidays from labour, and offer opportunities for social advancement through participation or sponsorship. As work resumes, a well-dressed man enters the pottery. His clothing marks him as wealthy, and everyone's demeanour changes immediately. Straighter postures, more deferential expressions. This is Demosthenes, a member of Athens' elite and an important client. Diocles hurries to greet him with carefully calibrated respect, neither too familiar nor too servile. "The craters for my symposium," Demosthenes states without preamble. "They must be ready in 3 days. Diocles assures him they're progressing well. You continue working but listen carefully to the interaction, learning crucial information about social hierarchy. Demosthenes speaks with the unconscious authority of someone who has never questioned his place at the top. Diocles responds with the careful deference of a skilled craftsman who has status but knows its limits. After Demosthenes leaves, satisfied with what he's seen, Diocles' shoulders relax visibly. His patronage matters, he explains to you. One word from him brings 10 new clients, or ruins us completely. This patron-client relationship exemplifies how social connections determined survival in ancient Greece. Merit and skill matter, but without the right relationships, even the most talented craftsman might starve. For Diocles, maintaining Demosthenes' favour isn't just good business. It's essential protection in a society where the powerful can destroy the vulnerable on a whim. He's on the council this year, Melina whispers to you as you work side by side. He judges citizenship claims too. The mention of citizenship highlights another fundamental aspect of Greek society, the rigid divisions that determine every aspect of life. Athens in particular has a famously restrictive citizenship system, especially after Pericles' citizenship law of 451 BCE, requiring both parents to be Athenian citizens. This creates a relatively small citizen body, only about 10–20% of the total population, with exclusive rights and privileges. As you work through the afternoon, you begin to grasp the complexity of Greek social structure, not just from observation, but from conversations around you. Diocles and his family discuss neighbours, customers, and public figures, inadvertently providing you with a crash course in Athenian society. At the top are citizens, free adult men born to Athenian parents who have completed their military service. Only they can vote, speak in the assembly, own property, and bring cases to court. Their wives and daughters have citizen status but virtually no political rights. Below them are metics, resident foreigners who live and work in Athens but can never become citizens. They pay special taxes, can't own land, and have limited legal protections, though many are successful merchants or craftsmen. Slaves occupy the bottom tier, comprising about a third of Athens' population. Their lives are defined by complete lack of freedom and constant vulnerability. They have no legal rights, no protection from abuse, and no control over their own bodies or labour. You've noticed several household slaves in wealthier homes you've passed, and the silver mines at Laurion, which provide much of Athens' wealth, are worked entirely by slaves in conditions that amount to a death sentence. Your position in this household is ambiguous, not exactly a slave since you weren't purchased, but not free in the modern sense either. You're dependent on Diocles' goodwill, with few options if he decides to cast you out. This precarious status is common in ancient societies, where formal slavery exists alongside various forms of dependency and obligation that constrain freedom without technically being slavery. You, Diocles calls, interrupting your thoughts. Take these finished pieces to the storage room, carefully. You're entrusted with carrying several painted but unfired vases to an adjacent storeroom. The responsibility, though small, indicates a marginal improvement in your status. Trust is earned incrementally here, where a single mistake can cost materials worth days or weeks of labour. In the storeroom, you encounter an elderly man carefully arranging pottery on shelves. This is Timon, Diocles' father, now too frail for most workshop tasks, but still contributing where his aging body allows. His hands, though gnarled with arthritis, move with practiced precision, born from decades at the potter's wheel. New, are you? He asks, eyeing you shrewdly. From where? When you hesitate, he chuckles, running from something. Aren't we all? He doesn't press further, instead showing you the proper way to position the unfired pottery. Stack them wrong, they crack. Simple as that. As you work together, Timon shares something valuable, context for understanding Athens' current situation. Having lived through the Persian Wars in his youth and now witnessing the Peloponnesian War in his old age, his perspective spans Athens' rise and the beginning of its decline. Golden Age, they call it, he snorts. Gold for some, perhaps. The Parthenon rises while common folk struggle for bread. Pericles makes grand speeches about democracy while his policies enrich his supporters. This critical view of Athens' celebrated democratic system reminds you that historical golden ages often shine brightest in retrospect and from a distance. The average Athenian experiences democracy primarily through its demands, military service, jury duty, tax payments, rather than its benefits, which flow disproportionately to the already privileged. The war stretches on, Timon continues, his voice lowering. Farms abandoned as men fight and die, fields burned by Spartans, and now rumours of sickness in the port. Mark my words, hard times approach. The sickness he mentions sends a chill through you, recognising the historical reference to the plague of Athens that will soon devastate the city, killing an estimated third of the population, including Pericles himself. The knowledge feels like a burden. These people around you, going about their daily lives, have no idea what's coming. When you return to the main workshop, tension hangs in the air. A disagreement has erupted between Diocles and Alexios over a design error that wasted expensive pigment. The conflict reveals the economic pressures that shape daily life. Materials are costly, margins thin, and mistakes potentially ruinous for a business operating with minimal reserves. 3 days' wages wasted, Diocles gestures angrily at the spoiled pottery. The design was unclear, Alexios defends himself, though his posture remains deferential even in disagreement. The argument ends abruptly when a woman enters the workshop. Her clothing marks her as a neighbour rather than a customer, and her expression is urgent. "Soldiers returning!" she announces without preamble. "From Potidea. Wounded. They're saying it went badly." The news lands like a physical blow. Potidea, a city in northern Greece, has been under Athenian siege during the early phase of the Peloponnesian War. A setback there represents not just military failure but potentially personal tragedy for families with men serving in the campaign. "Which units?" Lydia demands, emerging from the house, her face tight with concern. Her brother, you've learned, is among the forces at Potidea. "Don't know yet," the neighbour admits. "They're bringing them through the Dippolon gate now." The workshop empties immediately, work abandoned without hesitation. Even daily labour, so essential for survival, becomes secondary when war touches personal lives. You follow the family through streets suddenly alive with anxious energy as people flow toward the city's main gate to meet the returning soldiers. The scene at the Dippolon gate is chaotic and heart-rending. Wounded men are carried on makeshift stretchers or supported by comrades. Some walk under their own power but bear visible injuries, bandaged limbs, blood-soaked garments, the vacant stare of psychological trauma. Family members push forward, searching desperately for loved ones among the wounded and dreading their absence, which might indicate a fate worse than injury. Lydia scans the crowd with increasing panic until her shoulders suddenly sag with relief. Her brother Theon appears, limping heavily with a bandaged thigh but alive. The family surrounds him immediately, helping him toward home while he delivers news to anxious neighbours about their own men. This one alive, that one wounded but recovering, another missing and presumed captured or killed. War in ancient Greece isn't a distant event happening to professional soldiers. It's immediate, personal, and communal. Nearly every family has men serving, and news of battles directly affects daily life, creating widows, orphans, and disabled veterans who must be absorbed back into a society with minimal support systems for those who cannot work. As you help carry Theon's few possessions, you listen to his account of the fighting. The brutal reality of ancient warfare emerges through his description. The terror of standing in the phalanx formation as enemy spears thrust toward you. The physical exhaustion of fighting in heavy armor under the Mediterranean sun. The horror of seeing friends cut down beside you. Their right flank broke through, he explains, wincing as his injured leg is jostled, pushed us back to the walls, many drowned trying to reach the ships. Back at Diocles' house, Lydia treats her brother's wound with the limited medical knowledge available, cleaning it with wine, the alcohol providing some antiseptic benefit, applying a poultice of herbs and binding it with clean linen. There are no antibiotics, no professional medical care, except for the wealthy who can afford physicians, and even those doctors operate with severely limited understanding of infection and disease processes. The wound is clean, Lydia pronounces, though modern medical knowledge makes you doubt this assessment. No signs of the rot. She means gangrene, a common and deadly complication of battlefield injuries in the pre-antibiotic era. Theon's return creates a complex mix of emotions in the household: relief at his survival, concern for his injury, but also anxiety about having another person to feed while he's unable to work. Even in this moment of family reunion, economic reality intrudes. Every mouth requires sustenance and resources are limited. "You'll stay with us until healed," Diocles tells his brother-in-law. It's both generosity and obligation. Family members are expected to support each other in a society without formal safety nets. "I can still work with my hands," Theon insists, clearly concerned about being a burden. "I can paint, help with the firing." The evening meal becomes a small celebration of Theon's return with slightly more generous portions and the addition of a small piece of honeycomb, a rare sweet treat saved for special occasions. As the family eats, Theon shares news from beyond Athens, providing a wider perspective on the war and political situation throughout Greece. The conversation reveals another aspect of ancient life: the limited flow of information. News travels only as fast as the people carrying it, creating significant delays and distortions. What Theon knows of events at Potidaea is already weeks old. What's happening in more distant parts of the Greek world might take months to reach Athens, and the reliability of such information depends entirely on the sources. After the meal, neighbours visit to welcome Theon home and inquire about their own relatives in the campaign. The social bonds of the neighbourhood become visible, the interconnected web of relationships that provides mutual support in times of hardship. These connections aren't just pleasant social ties, but essential survival mechanisms in a world where formal institutions provide minimal assistance. An older man named Cleon, known for his knowledge of healing, examines Theon's wound and suggests additional treatments, a different herb mixture and a specific positioning of the leg during sleep. This informal medical consultation represents another aspect of community support, with knowledge shared freely among neighbours as a matter of survival. "The wound is deep but clean," Cleon confirms. "Keep it dry, change the dressing daily, watch for red streaks moving up the leg, that's when you worry." The practical, matter-of-fact approach to injury and illness reflects a society intimately familiar with physical suffering. Pain and disability are not exceptional states but common conditions to be managed with the limited tools available. There's no expectation of complete healing or return to full function, just hope for enough recovery to resume some form of productive work. As evening deepens into night, the household prepares for sleep. The day's disruption has altered the normal routine, but certain patterns remain constant. Oil lamps are extinguished to conserve precious fuel, bedding is arranged in the shared living space, and small final offerings are made at the household shrine. You find yourself positioned near Theon, who seems grateful for company during what will likely be a painful night. The wounded soldier studies you with curiosity. Diocles says you appeared from nowhere, he remarks quietly, speaking strangely, knowing nothing of Athens. You offer a vague explanation about coming from a distant region and suffering an injury that affected your memory, a story that seems to satisfy most questions without revealing your impossible true origins. War makes strangers of us all, Theon replies philosophically. Who I was before Potidaea seems like another person now. This sentiment, the transformative effect of trauma and hardship on identity, transcends historical periods. The psychological impact of warfare, though not described in modern clinical terms, is clearly recognized and understood through cultural frameworks available to ancient Greeks. As conversation around you dies down and the household settles into sleep, your mind remains active, processing the day's experiences. The social world of ancient Athens has become more legible to you, its hierarchies and divisions, its networks of obligation and support, its methods of coping with hardship and uncertainty. You've witnessed how war shapes daily life, how family bonds provide essential security, how social connections determine access to resources and opportunities. You've seen the physical toll of ancient living conditions on human bodies and the psychological strategies people develop to endure constant hardship. Most strikingly, you've recognized that survival in ancient Greece isn't primarily an individual achievement, but a collective process. The ancient Athenians endure through interconnection, the household, the neighborhood, the community of citizens, the shared religious practices that bind them together, despite internal divisions. As sleep finally approaches, you wonder about your place in this intricate social web. You've begun to form connections with Diocles' family, with neighbors like Nicias, with returned soldiers like Theon. These relationships, tenuous as they are, represent your best hope for survival in a world where isolation is tantamount to death. The night deepens around the sleeping household. Outside, Athens continues its restless existence, watchmen making rounds, symposia in wealthy homes stretching into late hours, the occasional shout or burst of laughter from revelers. The city never truly sleeps, its rhythms continuing through darkness just as they have for centuries before and will for centuries after your brief visit to this ancient world. You wake suddenly in the pre-dawn darkness, momentarily disoriented until the now familiar smells of the potter's house bring you back to your ancient reality. Something's wrong. The household stirs with unusual activity for this hour. Hushed voices, hurried movements, the sound of water being poured. "Fever's worse," comes Lydia's tense voice. "He's burning up." It's Theon. Overnight, his wound has taken a dangerous turn. Despite the wine cleaning and herbal poultices, infection has set in, an almost inevitable outcome in a world without antibiotics or proper understanding of germ theory. You rise from your sleeping pallet, joining the family gathered around Theon. His face is flushed, his breathing rapid and shallow. The bandage on his thigh shows seepage, yellow-green discharge that indicates infection. Modern medical knowledge tells you exactly what's happening. Bacteria are multiplying in the wound, entering the bloodstream, triggering the body's inflammatory response. Without intervention, sepsis will follow, then organ failure, then death. But here, in 430 BCE, no one understands these processes. They see only the external symptoms interpreted through frameworks of humoral imbalance or divine displeasure. The wound festers, Diocles says grimly. Cleon must be called. Melina is sent to fetch the neighborhood healer, running through streets still dark and dangerous before dawn. You offer to help and are tasked with bringing fresh water, which you fetch from the household cistern, a stone-lined reservoir that collects rainwater from the roof. The water looks relatively clean compared to public sources, a small advantage of living in a craftsman's home rather than the poorest dwellings. When Cleon arrives, sleep-tousled but alert, he examines Theon with practiced efficiency. His methods reflect the best medical knowledge available in ancient Greece: observation of symptoms, checking pulse and respiration, examining bodily secretions. He unwraps the bandage, revealing the angry red inflammation around the wound, the purulent discharge, the streaking redness extending up the thigh that indicates spreading infection. "Blood and bile fight within him," Cleon pronounces, his explanation reflecting Hippocratic theory of the four humours: the balance must be restored. His treatment plan makes you inwardly cringe with modern medical knowledge. First, bloodletting, opening a vein to drain some of Theon's blood, allegedly to reduce the excess causing fever. This practice, far from helping, will further weaken an already compromised patient. Next, purgatives, to induce vomiting and diarrhea, theoretically to expel bad humours, but actually causing additional dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. Finally, a poultice of bread mould and honey for the wound itself. Ironically, this last treatment might actually help somewhat. Certain moulds contain compounds similar to antibiotics, and honey has legitimate antimicrobial properties, but these beneficial effects are counteracted by the harmful bloodletting and purgatives. Medicine in ancient Greece represents a dangerous mixture of occasional insight and fundamental misunderstanding. As Cleon works, he explains his reasoning, providing a window into ancient medical thinking. The four humours, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, must exist in proper balance for health. Illness occurs when they're out of proportion, with different symptoms indicating different imbalances. Fever suggests excess blood or yellow bile, hence the bloodletting to reduce this excess. You assist as requested, handing materials and helping hold Theon still during painful procedures. The wounded soldier bears treatment stoically, though his face contorts with pain when the wound is cleaned. He's conscious but confused, his eyes glassy with fever, occasionally murmuring about the battle or calling for comrades who aren't present. Will he survive? Lydia asks directly, her practical nature asserting itself even in this emotional moment. Cleon's answer is equally direct. If the fever breaks by tomorrow, yes. If not, he leaves the sentence unfinished, but everyone understands the implication. Many battle wounds that seem survivable initially prove fatal through infection. The family faces the very real possibility of celebrating Theon's return one day only to mourn his death the next. This precariousness, the thin line between life and death, the rapid reversals of fortune, characterizes existence in ancient Greece. Survival isn't a state achieved once and maintained, but a daily process requiring constant vigilance and frequently dependent on chance. The robust young soldier of yesterday becomes today's fever-stricken invalid, his fate hanging in balance despite everyone's best efforts. Dawn breaks as Cleon finishes his treatments. The household should be beginning its normal workday, but Theon's condition disrupts the routine. Diocles faces a difficult decision: continue production despite the crisis or pause work to attend to his brother-in-law. Economic necessity wins out. Pottery must still be completed for the upcoming festival. Diocles, Alexios, and Melina will work while Lydia tends to Theon. You, Diocles points to you. Help my wife today, then join us when you can. This assignment reflects both trust and practicality. You've shown yourself useful and relatively intelligent, making you a better choice for sickroom assistance than some alternatives. But you're also the most expendable workshop worker, the one whose absence least affects production. As the others depart for the workshop, you remain with Lydia and the feverish Theon. Your tasks are simple but essential, keeping cool cloths on his forehead, helping him drink small amounts of watered wine, assisting with his bodily functions now that he's too weak to manage alone. These basic nursing duties transcend historical periods. The sick have always needed similar care regardless of era. He fought at Marathon, my father, Lydia says unexpectedly as she wrings out a cloth, came home with a Persian spear wound in his side, lived another 20 years, said the gods spared him for a purpose. She looks at her brother's flushed face. I hope they see purpose in sparing Theon too. This reference to the Battle of Marathon, a defining Athenian victory against the Persians in 490 BCE, contextualizes Lydia's generation. Their parents experienced the Persian Wars, the unexpected Greek triumph against a vastly larger empire. That victory enabled the flowering of Athenian democracy and culture that followed, the Golden Age now threatened by the Peloponnesian War and the approaching plague you know from history. Throughout the morning, neighbours visit briefly, offering help, bringing small gifts of food or herbal remedies believed effective against fever. These visits demonstrate again how interdependent survival is in this society. No single household has all necessary resources or knowledge. People survive through sharing and mutual support within networks of obligation and reciprocity. An older woman named Phaedra brings a small votive figure of Asclepius, god of healing, to place near Theon's bed. My son recovered from battle fever after we made offerings at the Asclepion, she tells Lydia. Perhaps the god will show favour again. This intersection of medicine and religion characterizes Greek approaches to health. Practical treatments coexist with religious rituals. Physicians work alongside priests. Physical remedies complement spiritual interventions. The boundaries between medicine, religion, and magic, so clearly defined in modern thinking, blur considerably in ancient practice. Midday brings no improvement in Theon's condition. His fever remains high, his breathing laboured. Occasional tremors shake his body, potential signs of advancing sepsis that would be immediately recognised and aggressively treated in a modern hospital but can only be observed helplessly here. You take a brief break from sickroom duties to fetch more water. Outside, Athens continues its normal activities, seemingly indifferent to the life and death struggle occurring within Diocles' home. The contrast is jarring, how individual suffering can be so acute while collective life proceeds uninterrupted. Yet this too characterises the ancient world, where death is so commonplace that society cannot pause for each occurrence. Returning with water, you find Lydia performing another type of healing intervention, singing a soft, rhythmic melody that seems to slightly calm Theon's restless movements. Music therapy has ancient roots, recognized by Greek physicians for its effects on patients' conditions. The melody she sings is unfamiliar to your modern ears, using musical modes and intervals that sound slightly strange but hauntingly beautiful. Our mother sang this during illnesses, she explains when she notices your attention. Old songs have power, some say. As the day progresses, you observe how Lydia combines multiple approaches to healing: the physical treatments Cleon prescribed, religious offerings to Asclepius, musical therapy from family tradition, and constant practical nursing care. This holistic approach, drawing on every available resource, represents the ancient survival strategy when facing illness. Try everything, hope something works. By late afternoon, subtle changes appear in Theon's condition. His breathing seems slightly less laboured, his skin marginally less hot to touch. Lydia notices too, but remains cautiously realistic, having seen too many temporary improvements preceding final decline. "Sometimes they rally before the end," she says, dampening hope. "But sometimes it marks true recovery. We'll know by morning." This measured approach to both hope and despair reflects another survival strategy in a world of high mortality, emotional regulation that neither surrenders prematurely to grief nor indulges in unrealistic optimism. People develop psychological defenses against the constant threat of loss, creating emotional frameworks that accommodate death without being incapacitated by it. As evening approaches, you're sent to the workshop to help with the day's final tasks. The atmosphere there is subdued, everyone aware of Theon's precarious condition, but continuing necessary work. Pottery doesn't pause for personal crises. Kilns must be tended, clay prepared, orders completed. Economic survival demands continued productivity, even amid potential grief. Diocles works silently at his wheel, his usual critiques and instructions reduced to terse gestures. Alexios and Melina maintain similar focus, the workshop unusually quiet without the normal conversation and occasional singing that accompanies labour. You join them in preparing clay for tomorrow's work, your hands now somewhat more accustomed to the physical tasks after 2 days of practice. "How is he?" Melina finally asks, breaking the silence. "Fighting," you answer, using Lydia's term. There might be small improvement. The hope in her expression is painful to see, knowing how easily it might be crushed. Children in ancient Greece become familiar with death early. Siblings, friends, and relatives die regularly from causes that would be preventable or treatable in modern times. Yet they still hope, still invest emotionally in uncertain outcomes. After work ends, everyone returns to the main house, where Lydia has prepared a simple evening meal. Eating happens around Theon's sickbed, the family unwilling to leave him even briefly. The meal is subdued, with minimal conversation beyond necessary coordination of care tasks. As darkness falls, Cleon returns to check Theon's condition. His examination is thorough, including not just physical symptoms, but questions about dreams and sensations that might provide diagnostic insights according to Hippocratic methods. The slight improvements you and Lydia noticed seem confirmed by his more experienced assessment. "The crisis approaches," he announces. "Tonight will determine his path. If he survives until dawn with the fever broken, he will likely recover." This concept of crisis in illness, a turning point where the condition definitively improves or deteriorates, comes from Hippocratic medicine. It reflects observation of how many infectious diseases follow patterns of intensification followed by resolution, either through recovery or death. Without understanding the underlying microbiology, ancient physicians nevertheless recognized these clinical patterns. Cleon adjusts his treatment plan based on the current symptoms, discontinuing purgatives, applying a different poultice to the wound, recommending specific positioning to improve breathing. These modifications demonstrate the empirical, observation-based nature of the best ancient medical practice, which could be remarkably responsive to changing patient conditions despite fundamental misconceptions about disease causes. After Cleon departs, the family organizes for night watch. Diocles takes the first shift, followed by Lydia, then you, then Alexios near dawn. This rotation ensures continuous monitoring without exhausting any individual. Again, survival strategies emerge. Collective effort, resource sharing, practical solutions to challenges. Your assigned watch comes in the deepest part of night, when Athens is as quiet as it ever becomes. Sitting beside Theon's bed, applying cool cloths when he seems overheated, helping him drink small sips of water when he rouses, you reflect on the profound differences between ancient and modern experiences of illness. In your time, Theon's infection would be treated with intravenous antibiotics, his fever reduced with antipyretics, his fluid balance carefully monitored and maintained. The intervention would be primarily technological and pharmaceutical, conducted by specialized professionals in dedicated facilities. Here, treatment is intimate, domestic, and communal. Family members provide direct care, neighbors contribute knowledge and resources. The patient remains integrated in household space rather than isolated in an institution. The approach is holistic out of necessity, combining physical, psychological, and spiritual elements because no single intervention is sufficiently effective alone. During your vigil, Theon experiences periods of lucidity between fever-induced confusion. During one such moment, he studies your face in the dim lamplight. "You have strange eyes," he observes quietly. "They've seen things mine haven't." The comment startles you, an unexpected insight that seems to pierce your cover story. Before you can formulate a response, he continues, "In battle, I saw men with eyes like yours, not afraid exactly, different, like they're seeing ghosts of what hasn't happened yet." This perceptiveness reminds you that historical people weren't less intelligent or observant than modern humans, just operating with different knowledge frameworks. Theon senses something unusual about you, but interprets it through concepts available to him. Battle trauma, divine influence, perhaps philosophical contemplation. "Oh, rest," you encourage, deflecting further conversation. "Save strength for healing." He subsides, closing his eyes, but his observation lingers in your mind. Your perspective as a displaced modern person, knowing historical outcomes, understanding biological processes, carrying cultural frameworks from a future society, does create a kind of double vision. You experience ancient Athens both as immediate reality and as historical construct, simultaneously participant and observer. Near the end of your watch, you notice a subtle change in Theon's breathing, deeper, more regular, less laboured. Touching his forehead, you find it cooler, the raging fever apparently broken during the night. His body has fought off the infection against significant odds, his immune system succeeding without pharmaceutical assistance. Not everyone would be so fortunate. Many in his situation would succumb, but Theon appears to be among the survivors. When Alexios arrives to relieve you, you share the good news. His typically guarded expression breaks into genuine relief. Despite initial hostility towards you as an interloper, he clearly cares about the household's welfare, including Theon's recovery. "The gods favour him," Alexios says simply, "and Lydia's care is better than any physician's." This credit to both divine intervention and human effort typifies Greek understanding of causality, where natural and supernatural explanations coexist rather than compete. Success comes through proper action, skilled care, and proper relationship with divine powers. Appropriate worship, neither sufficient alone. Dawn approaches as you settle back onto your sleeping pallet, physically and emotionally exhausted from the intensity of sickroom duties. The household will soon stir for normal daily activities, but you've been granted brief rest before rejoining workshop labour. As sleep claims you, one realization emerges clearly from the day's experiences. Modern humans have forgotten what it means to live with death as a constant companion, its shadow falling across every household, its possibility present in every minor injury or illness. the psychological resilience required to function in such conditions, to love knowing loss is likely, to plan knowing plans will be disrupted, to hope knowing hope will often be crushed, represents a strength largely unnecessary in your safer modern world. Yet this intimacy with mortality also creates a different relationship with life, an immediacy and appreciation perhaps diluted in societies where death seems distant and abstract. The ancient Greeks lived closer to fundamental realities of human existence, without the technological buffers that create illusion of control. Their religious practices, philosophical inquiries, artistic expressions, and social structures all reflect this unmediated confrontation with life's fragility and brevity. Your consciousness fades as the first light of dawn filters through the small window, illuminating the sleeping household, a family unit that has, at least for now, successfully protected its members against one of countless threats in this ancient world. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but tonight, survival has been achieved. You're awakened by Melina gently shaking your shoulder. Despite the exhaustion of night duty, the household can't afford to let you sleep late. Every working hand is needed, especially with Theon requiring care. He's better, Melina whispers, her face bright with cautious joy. The fever broke completely. Cleon says he'll recover if infection doesn't return. This good news energizes the household. Lydia moves with lighter steps as she prepares breakfast. Diocles' instructions in the workshop carry less tension, and even Alexios seems less guarded. The collective relief highlights how interconnected well-being is in this society. One person's recovery affects the entire social unit. After a quick breakfast of barley porridge sweetened with a precious drizzle of honey, a small celebration of Theon's improvement, work resumes with renewed focus. The Panathenaic festival approaches, and Diocles' pottery must be ready. Craft production follows religious calendars, creating cycles of intense activity before major festivals. You've been promoted from basic clay preparation to more skilled tasks, painting simple designs on smaller pieces. Your modern fine motor control, trained through years of writing and typing, proves advantageous for this precision work. Alexios notices your steady hand and nods with grudging approval. Not terrible, he concedes, which from him constitutes high praise. Perhaps Athena guides your hand. The casual attribution of skill to divine influence reflects how Greeks understand talent and ability, not as purely individual qualities but as gifts or manifestations of divine favour. Excellence in any field is seen partly as evidence of a special relationship with the relevant deity, creating both privilege and obligation. Midday brings an unexpected visitor to the workshop. Demosthenes, the wealthy patron who ordered craters for his symposium. His arrival causes immediate tension, as his presence is both opportunity and threat. His approval means continued patronage. His displeasure could ruin the business. "I've come to inspect progress," he announces, examining the nearly finished vessels with critical attention. You continue working, but observe the interaction carefully, noting the power dynamics. Demosthenes' posture, tone, and expectations reflect his elevated social position. Diocles demonstrates the deference required of even a skilled craftsman toward a social superior while maintaining the dignity of a free citizen with valuable expertise. The figures are well executed, Demosthenes allows finally. The symposium scene captures proper order. It will serve. His approval, though coolly delivered, visibly relieves Diocles. The commission is secure. As Demosthenes turns to leave, his gaze falls on you, a new face since his last visit. Your household grows, Potter, he comments. A distant relative fallen on hard times, Diocles lies smoothly, creating a socially acceptable explanation for your presence, skilled with the brush, as you see. Demosthenes studies you briefly, then dismisses you from attention, your status too insignificant to warrant further interest. The interaction demonstrates how social hierarchies in Athens aren't just economic but encoded in bodily practices, spatial relationships, and patterns of recognition or dismissal. After Demosthenes departs, Diocles explains the broader significance of maintaining this particular client relationship. He sits on the council this year and influences many wealthy households. His favour means more than just these craters. The political dimension adds another layer to what initially seemed a simple commercial transaction. In ancient Athens, economic, political, and social relationships aren't separate domains but thoroughly intertwined. Craft production exists within networks of patronage that connect to political power, religious authority, and social status. As afternoon progresses, a commotion becomes audible from the street, raised voices, rapid movement, a growing crowd. Diocles sends Melina to investigate, and she returns breathless with disturbing news. Assembly called immediately, she reports, heralds announcing through all streets, something about Spartan movements and disease at Piraeus. This announcement causes visible alarm. Unexpected assembly meetings usually indicate crisis, military threat, political upheaval, or natural disaster. The mention of disease particularly concerns you, knowing from historical records that the devastating plague of Athens is beginning its deadly spread through the city. Diocles, as a citizen, must attend the emergency assembly. He cleans himself hastily and changes into slightly better clothing. Civic participation requires proper appearance, even for craftsmen. Before departing, he gives quick instructions for continuing work in his absence. Uncertainty about the situation reflected in his tense expression. May Zeus guide the assembly's wisdom, Lydia says, as he leaves, a common invocation before political gatherings. The blending of religious sentiment with civic duty reveals how thoroughly integrated these domains are in Greek life. With Diocles gone, the workshop dynamic shifts subtly. Alexios assumes temporary authority as the senior male present, but in practical terms, Lydia's direction guides the household. This reveals the complexity of gender roles in ancient Greece. Women lack formal authority, but often exercise considerable practical influence within domestic spaces. Continue with the symposium cups, Lydia instructs you. Alexios will handle the kiln firing. As you work, conversations focus on speculating about the emergency assembly's purpose. The household exists within concentric circles of information flow. Personal knowledge from direct experience, neighborhood news from local networks, city information from public announcements, and broader world events from travelers or returned soldiers like Theon. Could be the disease spreading, Melina suggests worriedly. 3 families near the port have fallen ill, my friend Charis said. Strange symptoms, fever, reddened eyes, bleeding. Or Spartan ships sighted, Alexios counters. Last assembly call was when their forces moved north. The uncertainty itself is historically authentic. Information travelled slowly, was often incomplete or distorted, and left people to make crucial decisions without full knowledge of circumstances. This information deficit shaped how ancient Greeks approached risk and planning, creating cognitive adaptations to uncertainty that modern humans accustomed to information abundance might struggle to develop. Late afternoon brings Diocles' return, his expression grave as he enters the workshop. The assembly news was indeed serious, confirmation of disease spreading from Piraeus port into Athens proper, coupled with reports of Spartan forces consolidating in positions that threaten Athenian supply lines. Pericles addressed the assembly. He tells the anxiously waiting household, we're to continue his strategy, maintain the walls, rely on naval power, avoid land battle with Spartan forces. This strategy, which you recognize from historical accounts, involves Athens withdrawing behind its massive defensive walls, maintaining control of sea routes for supplies, and avoiding direct confrontation with Sparta's superior land forces. It's militarily sound, but creates conditions that will accelerate disease spread. Overcrowding as rural populations seek protection within the city, strain on water and sanitation systems, and stress on food distribution. What of the sickness? Lydia asks directly, her practical concern cutting through political considerations. Physicians disagree on cause and treatment, Diocles admits. Some blame bad air from marshes, others tainted water, some say Persian agents poisoned wells. The council advises increased offerings to Apollo and Asclepius. The various explanations reflect pre-scientific understanding of disease, attempting to make sense of epidemic illness through available frameworks, environmental factors, deliberate human action, or divine displeasure. None recognizes the actual microbial causes that modern knowledge would immediately identify. The assembly news casts a shadow over the household's earlier relief at Theon's improvement. Personal good fortune seems small against looming public disaster. This constant oscillation between hope and fear, between temporary security and imminent threat, characterizes emotional life in ancient Greece. What shall we do? Melina asks, voicing the question everyone contemplates. Continue our work, Diocles answers firmly. Maintain cleanliness, make proper offerings. The festival proceeds despite these troubles, perhaps especially because of them. The gods must be honoured most diligently in difficult times. This response exemplifies Greek resilience strategies. Focus on controllable actions, maintain religious observances believed to offer protection, and continue productive activities that provide both practical resources and psychological stability amid uncertainty. The evening meal becomes a council of sorts, with everyone contributing observations and suggestions for navigating the developing crisis. Theon, weak but lucid, offers military perspective. Lydia focuses on practical household preparations, water storage, food preservation, medicinal herbs. Alexios knows which roads might remain open if siege conditions develop. Even Melina contributes, reporting what other children have observed about which neighbourhoods show signs of illness. This collaborative problem-solving demonstrates another survival adaptation, pooling diverse knowledge and perspectives to create more comprehensive understanding than any individual could develop alone. Modern specialist expertise has advantages, but can sometimes lack the integrative approach these ancient households naturally employed. After the meal, Diocles performs more elaborate household rituals than usual, offering wine, oil, and bread to household deities and ancestors, seeking their protection against the dual threats of war and disease. Everyone participates, including you, recognizing that religious practice represents both psychological comfort and social cohesion during crisis. The night brings new anxieties as you prepare for sleep. Your modern knowledge of the coming plague creates a terrible burden, awareness of historical devastation that will kill approximately 1/3 of Athens' population, including Pericles himself, yet inability to effectively warn or protect these people who have given you shelter. Sleep proves elusive as you lie on your pallet, listening to the household's breathing around you. The physical discomfort of ancient sleeping arrangements, hard surfaces, rough textiles, insect bites, combines with psychological disquiet to keep consciousness active despite physical exhaustion. In this wakeful state, your mind catalogues the survival challenges you've observed in just a few days of ancient life. Physical threats abound: disease without effective treatment, injury without proper medical care, malnutrition from limited diets, contaminated water, unsafe working conditions, violence both criminal and military. Social vulnerabilities create additional risks. Status determines access to resources. Legal protection depends on citizenship category. Economic security relies on patronage networks. And political conflicts create dangers even for non-participants. Psychological burdens accumulate: constant proximity to death and suffering, uncertainty about basic security, limited information for decision-making, and religious frameworks that sometimes attribute misfortune to divine displeasure or personal failure. Yet, alongside these challenges, you've witnessed remarkable adaptations. Social structures provide crucial support. Households function as economic units, neighborhoods share resources and information, religious communities offer both practical and psychological assistance, and patronage networks distribute resources across status boundaries. Knowledge systems, while lacking modern scientific understanding, effectively organize information about environmental patterns, human behaviors, practical techniques, and historical experiences, creating useful predictive frameworks despite theoretical limitations. Psychological strategies develop naturally: emotional regulation to handle constant loss, cognitive flexibility to navigate uncertainty, attention management that focuses on controllable factors, and meaning-making through religious and philosophical frameworks that render suffering comprehensible. As the night deepens, occasional sounds penetrate from outside: distant voices, dogs barking, the measured tread of night watchmen making rounds. Athens never fully sleeps, its rhythms continuing through darkness as they have for centuries. Your thoughts turn to the coming day with its inevitable challenges. The household must continue pottery production despite growing crisis, maintaining economic activity that ensures survival. Religious obligations must be fulfilled, social connections maintained, practical preparations advanced. The work of living proceeds even as threats multiply. Somewhere in these reflections, exhaustion finally overcomes anxiety, and sleep claims you. Your dreams blend ancient and modern realities. Pottery wheels become computer screens, Athenian streets transform into highways, Diocles speaks with voices from your previous life. These cognitive integrations reflect your brain's attempt to reconcile vastly different experiential frameworks. Dawn arrives too soon, sunlight filtering through the small window to signal another day's beginning. The household stirs around you, resuming patterns established over generations: water fetched, fire kindled, simple food prepared, religious observances performed. These daily practices, mundane yet essential, form the foundation of survival. Diocles pauses beside your pallet as you rise. "Strange times approach," he says quietly, "but strange times have come before. Humans endure." This simple philosophy, neither optimistic nor despairing, encapsulates ancient resilience, recognition of hardship without surrender to it. As you prepare for another day in ancient Athens, you carry a deeper understanding of both its challenges and strengths. Modern humans might struggle to survive here not just because of physical hardships, but because of lost adaptations, social interconnections, practical knowledge, psychological strategies, and meaning systems that evolved specifically for environments of high uncertainty and limited technological mediation. The sun climbs higher, casting golden light across the awakening city. Athens proceeds with its daily rhythms, markets opening, workshops beginning production, temples receiving worshippers, public spaces filling with citizens. Life continues in the shadow of approaching catastrophe, neither ignorant of threat nor paralyzed by it. You join the household's morning activities, now familiar with basic routines and expectations. Your body, though still struggling with ancient conditions, has begun adapting, hands toughening from labor, muscles strengthening for daily tasks, senses sharpening to navigate urban challenges. Physical adaptation happens relatively quickly. The deeper psychological and social adjustments require more time. Looking around at Diocles' household, their evident concern yet continued functionality, their awareness of danger yet commitment to necessary action, you recognize something profound about human resilience across time. Ancient Greeks lacked modern technology and scientific knowledge, but possessed adaptive strategies equally sophisticated in their own way, allowing survival in conditions that would overwhelm many modern humans. As the household disperses to various tasks, Diocles and Alexios to the workshop, Lydia to market errands, Melina to household duties, Theon to continued recovery, you follow your assigned role, carrying forward ancient patterns that have sustained human communities through countless crises across millennia. Whether you personally would survive long-term in ancient Greece remains questionable. The odds favor native adaptation over transplanted modern consciousness. But in these few days of immersion, you've glimpsed both why survival was so challenging and how it was nevertheless achieved, generation after generation, creating continuity that eventually connects these ancient lives to your own modern existence. The pottery wheel turns, clay shaped by practiced hands into forms that will outlast their creators. Some vessels made in workshops like this one will survive for thousands of years, eventually displayed in museums of your era. This tangible connection across time reminds you that survival isn't just individual, but collective. Civilization enduring through accumulated knowledge, social structures, and adaptive strategies passed between generations. Athens faces its greatest trial in the coming months, and many within its walls will not survive the combined devastation of war and plague. But the culture itself will continue, its ideas, practices, and creations flowing forward through time to influence countless future societies, including your own. The next morning dawns clear and warm, sunlight filtering through the small window to illuminate dust motes dancing in the air. Before anyone else stirs, you find yourself awake, watching the gradual transition from darkness to light. This simple daily miracle, the reliable return of the sun, provided ancient peoples with their most fundamental timekeeper and source of psychological stability. Beside you, Theon sleeps peacefully, his fever completely gone, his breathing is deep and regular, his skin no longer flushed with infection. His recovery seems miraculous by ancient standards, though your modern knowledge recognizes it as simply good fortune. His immune system successfully fought off infection without the antibiotics that would be standard treatment in your time. As the household begins to wake, Lydia is the first to check her brother's condition, touching his forehead with practiced assessment. Her relief is visible when she finds him cool and resting comfortably. "The crisis has passed," she says softly. "Asclepius heard our prayers." This attribution of recovery to divine intervention rather than biological processes reflects not ignorance, but a different framework for understanding causality. In the Greek worldview, natural processes and divine action aren't separate domains, but complementary aspects of reality. The herbs worked because they contain medicinal properties, yes, but those properties exist because the gods designed them for healing purposes. The morning routine unfolds with practiced efficiency. Water fetched, fire kindled, simple breakfast prepared. These daily patterns, repeated across countless households throughout Athens, create the foundation of social stability even amid larger uncertainties of war and disease. Today marks your 4th day in ancient Greece, long enough to begin adapting to its rhythms and requirements, yet still fundamentally dislocated between modern consciousness and ancient reality. Your body shows signs of this adaptation: calloused hands from labour, muscles accustomed to carrying water, digestive system adjusted to the limited ancient diet. But your mind still processes experience through modern frameworks, creating constant cognitive dissonance. Breakfast conversation focuses on practical plans. Diocles must deliver completed pottery to various clients. Lydia needs to purchase additional supplies. Alexios will manage the kiln for a new firing, and Melina will continue decorative work while also tending to Theon. "You'll accompany me today," Diocles tells you, indicating both growing trust and practical necessity. Many deliveries require extra hands. This assignment represents significant progress in your household standing. Delivering valuable goods to wealthy clients requires basic reliability and competence. Your rapid adaptation has been noticed and rewarded with increased responsibility, demonstrating how merit could still function within the constraints of ancient social hierarchies. Before departures, everyone participates in morning household rituals, small offerings at the family shrine, prayers for protection during daily activities, invocations of relevant deities for specific tasks. These religious practices aren't merely supernatural appeals, but create psychological preparation for the day's challenges and reinforce social bonds through shared observance. You help Diocles carefully pack finished pottery in straw-cushioned baskets for transport. The vessels represent significant economic value, weeks of skilled labour transformed into objects that wealthy Athenians consider essential for proper symposia and religious observances. Their safe delivery is critically important for the household's financial survival. Remember names and faces, Diocles advises as you prepare to leave. Connections matter in Athens. Today you're just carrying pottery, but someday you might need these people's goodwill. This counsel reflects the fundamental importance of social networks in ancient survival. Formal institutions provide limited security. Personal relationships create the safety nets that sustain people through crises. Observing and remembering social connections isn't merely polite, it's essential life strategy. The morning light illuminates Athens in golden clarity as you follow Diocles through the winding streets. The city appears beautiful from certain vantages: white buildings against blue sky, the Acropolis rising majestically on its plateau, colourful market awnings, flowering plants in courtyard gardens. This beauty coexists with harsh realities of sanitation problems, poverty and disease, creating the complex urban environment that characterized ancient Athens. Your first delivery takes you to a wealthy home near the Acropolis. The contrast with Diocles' modest dwelling is immediate and striking. This house features a spacious central courtyard with a proper impluvium for collecting rainwater, multiple rooms for different functions, painted wall decorations, and mosaic floors. Several slaves bustle about performing various household tasks. The owner, Nicanor, greets Diocles with the careful calculation of status differences, cordial but clearly establishing social superiority through tone and body language. When Diocles presents the commissioned wine craters, Nicanor inspects them with critical attention before expressing satisfaction. "Excellent figures," he comments, examining the painted scenes of mythological subjects. "Your skill maintains its reputation." This interaction demonstrates the complex relationship between craftsmen and elite clients in ancient Greece. Diocles possesses respected technical expertise that wealthy citizens need, creating limited leverage within an unequal relationship. The quality of his work allows him a certain professional dignity despite status disparities. As you help display the pottery for Nicanor's approval, you observe the household slaves watching you with subtle assessment. They recognize another person in service position, though your specific status remains ambiguous. Their expressions communicate a complex mix of curiosity about the newcomer and solidarity of shared subordinate status. After Nicanor approves the delivery and arranges payment, you help gather the packing materials and prepare to leave. As you exit, one of the household slaves slips you a small package with a whispered explanation. "For the wounded soldier, my brother served at Potidaea too." This small act of generosity, likely medicinal herbs or specially prepared food for Theon, demonstrates how information travels through Athens via informal networks and how solidarity operates across household boundaries. The slave, despite his constrained circumstances, exercises agency through this modest assistance to a fellow Athenian. Throughout the morning, you and Diocles make similar deliveries to various wealthy households. Each reveals different aspects of Athenian society: family structures, domestic arrangements, status distinctions, economic activities. You observe how architecture reflects social values, with men's areas, andron, separate from women's quarters, gyneconitis, in larger homes, reflecting gender segregation among the upper class. Between deliveries, Diocles provides ongoing education about Athenian life, pointing out landmarks and explaining their significance. This oral transmission of knowledge, experiential, contextual, and relationship-based, represents how most information transferred in pre-literate or limited literacy societies. There stands the painted stoa. He indicates a long colonnaded building where men gather in animated conversation. Philosophers debate there daily. Some say they talk sense, others say they corrupt the youth with strange ideas. The assembly has considered restrictions on their teachings. This casual reference to philosophical activity connects your experience to one of ancient Athens' most significant contributions to world civilization. The dialogues occurring in that modest structure will eventually influence thought across millennia, though contemporary Athenians regard them with mixed reactions ranging from admiration to suspicion. By midday, the deliveries bring you to the Agora, Athens' central marketplace and civic space. Here, the commercial, political, religious, and social functions of the city converge in vibrant interaction. Vendors sell everything from basic foodstuffs to luxury imports. Citizens gather to discuss politics before assembly meetings. Religious processions pass through en route to temples, and friends meet for conversation under shaded stoas. "Wait here while I speak with the magistrate about festival arrangements," Diocles instructs, leaving you briefly alone to observe the agora's activity. This momentary independence allows you to experience ancient Athens without mediation, to simply watch and listen as the city functions around you. The sensory impression is overwhelming. Vibrant colors of clothing and market goods, cacophony of multiple conversations and vendor calls, aromas of cooking food and incense from nearby temples, physical press of bodies moving through limited space. You notice a small crowd gathering around a public notice being read aloud for the benefit of those who cannot read, approximately half the male population and most women. The announcement concerns public health measures being implemented in response to the spreading illness from Piraeus. By order of the assembly, the reader proclaims, water sources shall be purified with offerings to the nymphs, public gatherings limited except for essential religious observances, and those showing symptoms of the Piraeus affliction confined to their homes under care of family. These measures reflect ancient understanding of disease management, religious intervention for supernatural causes, limited social distancing based on observed contagion patterns, and home care rather than centralized treatment. Without germ theory or modern epidemiology, these approaches represent rational responses within available knowledge frameworks. The crowd's reaction reveals diverse attitudes toward authority and risk. Some express support for protective measures, others voice skepticism about either the threat's severity or the assembly's motives, and many simply seek clarification about how the directives affect their daily activities. This range of responses to public health guidance has remained remarkably consistent across millennia. Diocles returns, his expression troubled after speaking with the magistrate. The sickness spreads faster than acknowledged publicly, he says quietly. The magistrate advises storing additional water and food. They fear the Spartans may attempt to take advantage if Athens weakens from disease. This information, shared privately rather than announced publicly, demonstrates how knowledge in ancient Athens travelled through different channels depending on sensitivity and potential for causing panic. Official announcements provided general guidance, while personal networks conveyed more specific or concerning details. As midday heat intensifies, Diocles leads you to a small cookshop for the day's main meal. These establishments served as ancient equivalents to fast food restaurants, providing quick, affordable meals for urban workers without cooking facilities or time to prepare food. The shop consists simply of a counter facing the street, cooking braziers, and a few benches for customers. 2 barley plates and cups of wine, Diocles orders, paying with small coins. The food arrives quickly. Barley porridge topped with olive oil, a few vegetables, and a small portion of salted fish. Simple fare but adequate nutrition, representative of average daily sustenance for working Athenians. While eating, Diocles continues your practical education in Athenian survival. Notice the man by the fountain, he indicates discreetly, wearing citizen's clothing, but his accent betrays him as foreign. Claiming citizenship falsely brings severe punishment, yet many attempt it for the privileges it provides. This observation highlights how legal status determines life possibilities in ancient Athens. Citizenship isn't merely symbolic, but conveys concrete advantages: political participation rights, legal protections, economic opportunities, and social standing. The boundaries between status categories are therefore strictly policed through both formal and informal mechanisms. After the meal, your deliveries take you to the theatre district near the Acropolis. Athens' famous amphitheatre stands empty today, but in festival seasons it hosts tragic and comic performances that represent another of ancient Greece's enduring cultural contributions. During Dionysia, the whole city attends, Diocles explains. Even prisoners are released temporarily to see the plays. The gods favour those who honour the festivals properly. This integration of religious observance, cultural expression, and civic participation typifies Athenian public life. Theatre performances aren't merely entertainment, but religious obligations, political commentary, and collective meaning-making through shared narrative experience. The afternoon progresses with additional deliveries to increasingly peripheral neighbourhoods. As you move away from the city centre, housing quality visibly deteriorates, streets narrow and become less maintained, and public amenities such as fountains become scarcer. This spatial organisation reflects social stratification, with wealth and status concentrated near the civic centre and diminishing toward boundaries. Your final delivery takes you near the city walls where recent rural migrants have established makeshift housing. These structures, improvised from available materials and crowded together without planning, house farmers who abandoned countryside holdings when Spartan forces threatened Attica. Their displacement creates both humanitarian challenges and strategic vulnerability, as Pericles' defensive strategy requires sacrificing rural territories to protect urban Athens. The recipient here is not a wealthy symposium host, but a religious association preparing for festival observances. Their modest resources still stretch to include proper vessels for rituals, demonstrating how religious practice transcended economic categories while adapting to different resource levels. The gods see the intention, not the expense, explains the association's elderly leader, as he carefully accepts the simple kylix cups Diocles has produced for their use. These will serve our offerings well. This interaction reveals another aspect of ancient Greek religion, its scalability across social classes. While wealthy citizens might sacrifice bulls at major temples with elaborate ceremony, modest associations could offer equally valid worship with simpler means. This flexibility allowed religious participation regardless of economic status, creating social cohesion across class boundaries. As late afternoon approaches, you and Diocles begin the return journey to the workshop, having completed all deliveries successfully. The day's circuit through Athens has provided comprehensive exposure to the city's social geography, its spatial organisation, status distributions, economic activities, and cultural expressions. You observe well and remember names, Diocles comments as you walk, useful qualities in Athens or anywhere. This simple approval carries significant weight coming from someone whose assessment directly affects your survival prospects. In ancient social structures, performance evaluation wasn't formalized through written reviews or credentials, but communicated through such verbal acknowledgements, gradually establishing reputation within community networks. Returning to the pottery, you find the household functioning smoothly despite the morning's dispersal. Alexios has managed a successful kiln firing. Melina has completed decorative work on several vessels. Theon continues recovering, while contributing what advice he can offer from his sickbed. And Lydia has prepared the evening meal while managing household operations. This coordination without constant communication demonstrates how established social systems function through shared expectations and competencies rather than explicit direction. Each person knows their role within the household economy and fulfills it with relative autonomy while maintaining awareness of collective needs. The evening meal brings everyone together for information sharing about the day's experiences. This daily ritual serves multiple functions: practical coordination, knowledge distribution, social bonding, and collective problem solving. The conversation moves between immediate concerns and broader contexts, connecting household activities to larger Athenian developments. The magistrate confirms more cases of the Piraeus sickness in the city, Diocles reports. The council debates whether to proceed with festival gatherings or limit them. Our neighbour's household shows symptoms, Lydia adds. Fever, reddened eyes, unusual rash. They've made offerings to Apollo but see no improvement. This exchange reveals how households functioned as information processing units, gathering data from different sources, analysing implications, and developing response strategies. Without centralised media or standardised information distribution, this networked intelligence provided essential situational awareness. After the meal, as darkness falls, the household transitions to evening activities illuminated by oil lamps. The light is warm but dim by modern standards, creating intimate circles of visibility surrounded by shadow. This lighting limitation shaped ancient experience, restricting nighttime activities, creating closer physical proximity during evening hours, and establishing different relationships with darkness than modern humans typically experience. Diocles uses this time to calculate accounts and plan production, scratching figures onto a wax tablet with a stylus. Lydia and Melina spin wool, converting raw fibre into thread for later weaving. Alexios prepares designs for tomorrow's decorative work. Theon, still recovering, entertains the household with stories from his military service, carefully edited to emphasize camaraderie and adventure rather than horror and loss. You assist with various small tasks while observing these evening routines. The technological simplicity of ancient life becomes especially apparent during these hours. No electric light extending activity into night, no digital entertainment providing distraction, no instantaneous communication connecting distant locations. Activity follows natural rhythms and physical limitations rather than technological possibilities. Yet within these constraints, rich social and intellectual life flourishes. Conversation ranges across practical matters, political developments, religious interpretations, family histories, and philosophical questions. Stories transmit cultural knowledge and moral frameworks. Work activities develop and display technical skills. Social interactions reinforce bonds essential for collective survival. As evening deepens, Diocles brings out a simple kithara, lyre, and plays traditional melodies while Melina sings. The music isn't preserved in any written form, but passes from generation to generation through direct transmission. Its scales and rhythms would sound strange to modern ears, using tonal patterns that predate Western musical development. This musical interlude creates a moment of beauty and tranquility amid challenging circumstances, the household facing economic pressures, Theon recovering from near-fatal injury, Athens confronting war and disease. The capacity to create and appreciate beauty, even in difficult conditions, represents another aspect of Greek resilience, transforming necessity into art. As the household prepares for sleep, final religious observances mark the day's completion. Small offerings, brief prayers, expressions of gratitude for another day survived. These rituals provide psychological closure and renewed connection with divine powers believed to influence human welfare. The sleeping arrangements remain communal, with family members and dependents sharing the main room. Privacy, as understood in modern terms, doesn't exist. Bodies rest in close proximity, breathing and occasional movements creating a shared acoustic environment throughout the night. This physical closeness reinforces social bonds while also transmitting illness more effectively, creating both protection and vulnerability. As you settle onto your sleeping pallet, now familiar though still far from comfortable, you reflect on what you've learned during these few days in ancient Athens. The experience has transformed abstract historical knowledge into embodied understanding of physical conditions, social structures, psychological adaptations, and cultural frameworks that shaped ancient lives. Most strikingly, you've recognized that survival in ancient Greece required fundamentally different capabilities than modern life demands. Physical endurance, social intelligence, practical knowledge, psychological resilience, and cultural integration all function together to create viable existence amid conditions that modern humans would find nearly unbearable. Your modern advantages, scientific understanding, technological familiarity, broader historical perspective provide certain insights unavailable to ancient Athenians, but their advantages, lifetime adaptation to physical conditions, intuitive understanding of social systems, embodied technical skills, psychological frameworks optimized for their environment, would likely outweigh your modern knowledge in determining survival outcomes. The question that first framed your journey, would you survive in ancient Greece, now seems both simpler and more complex. Physically, modern humans could adapt to ancient conditions given sufficient time and opportunity, though with significant hardship. Socially and psychologically, the transition would prove more challenging, requiring fundamental reconceptualization of individual identity, community relationship, and existential understanding. As sleep approaches, the sounds of ancient Athens create a gentle acoustic backdrop. Distant voices from neighboring houses, occasional footsteps in the street, the soft breathing of the household around you. These sounds connect you to countless others who have lain awake in darkness throughout human history, contemplating their place in worlds they only partially understand. Your consciousness begins to fade, body surrendering to exhaustion after another day of physical demands beyond modern norms. The distance between ancient and modern experience blurs in this liminal state between wakefulness and sleep, creating momentary integration of historically separated human conditions. In these final moments before sleep claims you completely, one truth emerges with perfect clarity: the fundamental continuity of human experience across historical divides, despite vast differences in technological conditions, knowledge frameworks, and social structures. The essential challenges of human existence remain remarkably consistent. Finding sustenance, avoiding harm, creating meaning, building connections, transmitting knowledge, and establishing identity within community. Ancient Greeks approached these challenges with different tools and understandings than modern humans employ, but with equal intelligence, creativity, and determination. Their solutions, though shaped by historical conditions and cultural frameworks different from your own, represent equally sophisticated adaptations to their particular circumstances. Would you survive in ancient Greece? Perhaps with sufficient time and support for adaptation? Would ancient Greeks survive in your modern world? Perhaps with similar accommodation? Human adaptability transcends specific historical conditions, creating potential for survival across vastly different environments. But the deeper question involves not just survival, but understanding. Can modern humans truly comprehend ancient experience without directly encountering its physical conditions, social structures, and psychological frameworks? Your brief immersion suggests both possibilities and limitations of historical empathy, the simultaneous accessibility and fundamental foreignness of past human experience. Sleep finally overcomes these reflections, your consciousness surrendering to the same biological necessity that has claimed all humans throughout history, regardless of time or place. In this most basic pattern, the daily cycle of waking and sleeping, ancient and modern experiences achieve perfect continuity, transcending the divisions of technological development and cultural change. And in your dreams, ancient Athens mingles with modern memories, creating impossible but meaningful connections across time. These cognitive integrations represent your mind's attempt to reconcile vastly different experiential frameworks to find coherence amid historical discontinuity. As you sleep beneath the same stars that illuminated ancient Greece, that shine above your bed tonight, and that will continue their eternal watch over human dreams for all the ages to come, the distance between past and present momentarily dissolves, revealing the essential unity of human experience across time's vast expanse. And with that, close your eyes and drift off to sleep.